The sustained effort necessary to induce faith, the eighth step toward riches, is persistence. This quality is an essential factor in the procedure of transmuting desire into its monetary equivalent. The very basis of persistence is the power of will. When willpower and desire are properly combined, they form an irresistible pair. Men who accumulate great fortunes are often misunderstood. They are generally known as cold-blooded and sometimes ruthless. This is a misconception, often arising from a lack of understanding. What these individuals actually possess is powerful willpower, which they mix with persistence and place firmly behind their desires to ensure the attainment of their objectives. Henry Ford, for example, was generally misunderstood as ruthless, but this misconception grew directly from his unyielding habit of following through on all his plans with persistence. The majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard, giving up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. A small, determined few, however, carry on despite all opposition until they attain their goal. These few are the Fords, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, and the Edisons. While there may be no heroic connotation to the word persistence, this quality is to the character of a person what carbon is to steel. The building of a fortune generally involves the application of all 13 factors of this philosophy. These principles must be understood, and they must be applied with persistence by all who wish to accumulate money. For the person following this book, their first true test of persistence will come when they begin to follow the 6 steps described in the 2nd chapter. Unless an individual is one of the rare 2 out of every 100 who already possesses a definite goal and a definite plan for its attainment, they may read the instructions, pass on with their daily routine, and never comply with them. This point is emphasized because a lack of persistence is one of the major causes of failure. Furthermore, experience with thousands of people has proven that a lack of persistence is a weakness common to the majority of men. It is, however, a weakness that may be overcome by effort. The ease with which this lack of persistence can be conquered will depend entirely upon the intensity of one's desire. The starting point of all achievement is desire. This must be kept constantly in mind. Weak desires will only bring weak results, just as a small amount of fire makes only a small amount of heat. If one finds themselves lacking in persistence, this weakness can be remedied by building a stronger fire under their desires. The author urges the reader to continue to the end, then go back to chapter 2 and start immediately to carry out the instructions for the 6 steps. The eagerness with which one follows these instructions will clearly indicate how much or how little they really desire to accumulate money. If a person finds that they are indifferent, they may be sure that they have not yet acquired the money consciousness, which must be possessed before one can be sure of accumulating a fortune. Fortunes gravitate to those individuals whose minds have been prepared to attract them, just as surely as water gravitates to the ocean. If one finds they are weak in persistence, they should center their attention on the instructions in the chapter on power and surround themselves with a mastermind group. Through the cooperative efforts of this group, persistence can be developed. One must follow the instructions in the chapters on autosuggestion and the subconscious mind until their habit. Nature hands over a clear picture of the desire. From that point on, a lack of persistence will no longer be a handicap. The subconscious mind works continuously while one is awake and while one is asleep. Spasmodic or occasional effort to apply these rules will be of no value. To get results, one must apply all of the rules until their application becomes a fixed habit. In no other way can the necessary money consciousness be developed. Poverty is attracted to the one whose mind is favorable to it, just as money is attracted to the one whose mind has been deliberately prepared to attract it, and they are both attracted through the very same laws. A poverty consciousness will voluntarily seize the mind which is not occupied with the money consciousness. A poverty consciousness develops without any conscious application of favorable habits. The money consciousness, by contrast, must be created to order unless one is born with it. Understanding the full significance of this is key to seeing the importance of persistence. Without persistence, one will be defeated even before starting. With persistence, one will win. An analogy can be found in the experience of a nightmare. A person is lying in bed, half awake, with a feeling that they are about to smother. They are unable to turn over or move a muscle. They realize that they must begin to regain control. Through a persistent effort of willpower, they finally manage to move the fingers of one hand. By continuing this effort, control is extended to the muscles of one arm until it can be lifted. Then, control of the other arm is gained in the same manner, followed by the legs. Finally, with one supreme effort of will, complete control over the muscular system is regained, and the person snaps out of the nightmare. The trick has been turned step by step. One may find it necessary to snap out of their mental inertia through a similar procedure. This means moving slowly at first, then increasing speed until complete control over the will is gained. One must be persistent, no matter how slowly they may have to move at first. With persistence will come success. Some men who have accumulated great fortunes did so because of necessity. They developed the habit of persistence because they were so closely driven by circumstances that they had to become persistent. There is no substitute for persistence. It cannot be supplanted by any other quality. This fact should be remembered, as it will provide heart in the beginning when the going may seem difficult and slow. Those who have cultivated the habit of persistence seem to enjoy an insurance against failure. No matter how many times they are defeated, they finally arrive up toward the top of the ladder. Sometimes it appears that there is a hidden guide whose duty is to test men through all sorts of discouraging experiences. Those who pick themselves up after defeat and keep on trying arrive. The world then cries, "Bravo! I knew you could do it." This hidden guide, it seems, lets no one enjoy great achievement without first passing the persistence test. Those who cannot take it simply do not make the grade. Those who can take it are bountifully rewarded for their persistence. They receive, as their compensation, whatever goal they are pursuing. But that is not all. They receive something infinitely more important: the knowledge that every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. These are the ones who have not accepted defeat as being anything more than temporary. They are the ones whose desires are so persistently applied that defeat is finally changed into victory. We who stand on the sidelines of life see the overwhelmingly large number who go down in defeat, never to rise again. We see the few who take the punishment of defeat as an urge to greater effort. These, fortunately, never learn to accept life's reverse gear. But what most of us do not see is the silent but irresistible power which comes to the rescue of those who fight on in the face of discouragement. If we speak of this power at all, we call it persistence. One thing we all know: if one does not possess persistence, one does not achieve noteworthy success in any calling. As these lines are being written, the author describes looking up from his work to see, less than a block away, the great and mysterious Broadway known as the Graveyard of Dead Hopes, and also the front porch of opportunity. People have come to Broadway from all over the world, seeking fame, fortune, power, love, or whatever it is that human beings call success. Once in a great while, someone steps out from the long procession of seekers, and the world hears that another person has mastered Broadway. But Broadway is not easily or quickly conquered. It acknowledges talent, recognizes genius, and pays off in money only after one has refused to quit. When that happens, the world knows they have discovered the secret. That secret is always inseparably attached to one word: persistence. This secret is told in the struggle of Fanny Hurst, whose persistence conquered the Great White Way. She came to New York, in 1915 to convert writing into riches. The conversion did not come quickly, but it came. For 4 years, Miss Hurst learned about the sidewalks of New York from first-hand experience. She spent her days laboring and her nights hoping. When hope grew dim, she did not say, "All right, Broadway, you win." She said, "Very well, Broadway, you may whip some, but not me. I'm going to force you to give up." One publisher, the Saturday Evening Post, sent her 36 rejection slips before she broke the ice and got a story across. The average writer would have given up the job when the first rejection slip came. She pounded the pavements for 4 years to the tune of the publisher's nitrogen monoxide because she was determined to win. Then came the payoff. The spell had been broken. The unseen guide had tested Fanny Hurst, and she could take it. From that time on, publishers made a beaten path to her door. Money came so fast she hardly had time to count it. Then the moving picture men discovered her, and money came out in small change, but in floods. The rights to her novel, Great Laughter, brought $100,000, said to be the highest price ever paid for a story. Before its publication, this provides a brief description of what persistence is capable of achieving. Fanny Hurst is no exception. Wherever men and women accumulate great riches, one can be sure they first acquired persistence. Broadway will give any beggar a cup of coffee, but it demands persistence from those who go after the big stakes. Kate Smith would say, "Amen to this." For years, she sang without money and without price, before any microphone she could reach. Broadway said to her, "Come and get it, if you can take it." She did take it, until one happy day Broadway got tired and said, What's the use? You don't know when you're whipped, so name your price, and go to work in earnest." Miss Smith named her price, and it was plenty. Here is an encouraging statement. Thousands of singers who excel Kate Smith are walking up and down Broadway looking for a break without success. Countless others have come and gone. Many of them sang well enough, but they failed to make the grade because they lacked the courage to keep on keeping on until Broadway became tired of turning them away. Persistence is a state of mind. Therefore, it can be cultivated. Like all states of mind, it is based upon definite causes, among them these. A. Definiteness of purpose. Knowing what one wants is the first, and perhaps the most important step. A strong motive forces one to surmount many difficulties. B. Desire. It is comparatively easy to acquire and maintain persistence in pursuing the object of an intense desire. C. Self-reliance. Belief in one's ability to carry out a plan encourages one to follow it through. D. Definiteness of plans. Organized plans, even if weak, encourage persistence. E. Accurate knowledge. Knowing that one's plans are sound, based on experience or observation, encourages persistence. Guessing, instead of knowing, destroys persistence. F. Cooperation. Sympathy, understanding, and harmonious cooperation with others tend to develop persistence. G. Willpower. The habit of concentrating one's thoughts on building plans for a definite purpose leads to persistence. H. Habit. Persistence is the direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes a part of the daily experiences upon which it feeds. Fear, for example, can be cured by the forced repetition of acts of courage. Before leaving this subject, one should take inventory of themselves and determine in what particular, if any, they are lacking in this essential quality. This analysis may lead to discoveries that will give a new grip on oneself. Symptoms of lack of persistence. Here are the real enemies which stand between an individual and noteworthy achievement. These are the weaknesses which must be mastered by all who accumulate riches. Failure to recognize and to clearly define exactly what one wants. Procrastination. With or without cause, usually backed up with an array of alibis. Lack of interest in acquiring specialized knowledge. Indecision, the habit of passing the buck instead of facing issues squarely, the habit of relying upon alibis instead of creating definite plans for the solution of problems. Self-satisfaction. There is little remedy for this affliction. Indifference, reflected in a readiness to compromise rather than meet opposition and fight it. The habit of blaming others for one's mistakes and accepting unfavorable circumstances as unavoidable. Weakness of desire, due to neglect in the choice of motives that impel action. Willingness, even eagerness, to quit at the first sign of defeat based on one or more of the 6 basic fears. Lack of organized plans, placed in writing where they may be analyzed. The habit of neglecting to move on ideas or to grasp opportunity. Wishing instead of willing. The habit of compromising with poverty instead of aiming at riches. A general absence of ambition, searching for shortcuts to riches. Trying to get without giving a fair equivalent. Fear of criticism. This enemy belongs at the head of the list. It is the failure to create and execute plans because of what other people will think, do, or say. The majority of people permit relatives, friends, and the public at large to influence them so much that they cannot live their own lives, all because they fear criticism. Huge numbers of people make mistakes in marriage and go through life miserable because they fear the criticism that would follow if they corrected the mistake. Millions neglect to acquire education after leaving school because they fear criticism. Countless people permit relatives to wreck their lives in the name of duty because they fear criticism. Duty, the author notes, does not require any person to submit to the destruction of his personal ambitions. People refuse to take chances in business because they fear the criticism that may follow if they fail. The fear of criticism, in such cases, is stronger than the desire for success. Too many people refuse to set high goals, fearing relatives and friends who may say, "Don't aim so high. People will think you are crazy." The author relates his own experience when Andrew Carnegie suggested he devote 20 years to organizing a philosophy of achievement. His first impulse was fear of what people might say. The suggestion set a goal far out of proportion to any he had ever conceived. His mind instantly began to create alibis. You can't do it. What will your relatives think? How will you earn a living? Who are you, anyway, to aim so high? It seemed as if the whole world had turned its attention to ridiculing him. He had a fine opportunity, then and there, to kill off ambition before it gained control. Later in life, after analyzing thousands of people, the author discovered that most ideas are stillborn and need the breath of life injected into them through definite plans of immediate action. The time to nurse an idea is at the time of its birth. The fear of criticism is at the bottom of the destruction of most ideas that never reach the planning stage. Many people believe success is the result of favorable breaks. There is an element of ground for this, but those depending entirely upon luck are nearly always disappointed. They overlook the knowledge with which favorable breaks can be made to order. During the Depression, W.C. Fields lost all his money, had no job, and his field, vaudeville, no longer existed. He was past 60. He was so eager for a comeback that he offered to work without pay in the new field of movies. To add to his troubles, he fell and injured his neck. Many would have quit, but Fields was persistent. He knew if he carried on, he would get the breaks, and he did, but not by chance. Marie Dressler was down and out, her money gone at about age 60. She, too, went after the breaks, and her persistence brought an astounding triumph late in life. Eddie Cantor lost his money in the 1929 crash, but he still had his persistence and his courage. With these, he exploited himself back into an income of $10,000 a week. Verily, If one has persistence, one can get along very well without many other qualities. The only brake anyone can afford to rely upon is a self-made brake. These come through the application of persistence. The starting point is always definiteness of purpose. Examine the first 100 people you meet, and 98 of them will not be able to tell you what they want most in life. If pressed, they will give vague wishes, security, money, happiness, but none will be able to define these terms or give the slightest indication of a plan by which they hope to attain them. Riches do not respond to wishes. They respond only to definite plans, backed by definite desires, through constant persistence. How to develop persistence? There are 4 simple steps which lead to the habit of persistence. They call for no great intelligence or education. The necessary steps are: a definite purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment, a definite plan, expressed in continuous action, a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences, including negative suggestions from relatives, friends, and acquaintances, a friendly alliance with one or more persons who will encourage one to follow through with both plan and purpose. These 4 steps are essential for success in all walks of life. The entire purpose of the 13 principles of this philosophy is to enable one to take these 4 steps as a matter of habit. These are the steps by which one may control their economic destiny. They lead to freedom, independence of thought, riches, power, and fame. They are the 4 steps which guarantee favorable breaks and convert dreams into physical realities. They also lead to the mastery of fear, discouragement, and indifference. There is a magnificent reward for all who learn to take these 4 steps. The privilege of writing one's own ticket and making life yield whatever price is asked. What mystical power gives to men of persistence the capacity to master difficulties? Does this quality set up some spiritual, mental, or chemical activity that gives access to supernatural forces? Does infinite intelligence throw itself on the side of the person who still fights on, even after the battle seems lost? These questions have arisen in the author's mind as he observed men like Henry Ford, who started at scratch and built an industrial empire with little else in the way of a beginning but persistence. Or Thomas A. Edison, who, with less than 3 months of schooling, became the world's leading inventor and converted persistence into the talking machine, the moving picture machine, and the incandescent light. The author states he had the privilege of analyzing both Mr. Edison and Mr. Ford over a long period of years at close range. He speaks from actual knowledge when he says that he found no quality save persistence in either of them that even remotely suggested the major source of their stupendous achievements. As one makes an impartial study of the great leaders, philosophers, and miracle men of the past, one is drawn to the inevitable conclusion that persistence, concentration of effort, and definiteness of purpose were the major sources of their achievements. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Matthew 6:33. May the Lord bless you and guide you in every good work.